Okay guys, welcome back. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to go through the process that I've used here to create this screen. Okay, so I'm going to hide this layer. At the moment, just thought I'd show you, I've got a number of artboards here, which is the process we're going through. Started out with our original inspiration. We looked at the single screen. We then looked at some image trace options. We even looked at the sketch sort of trace option. But what we're doing now is what I often refer to as a block out, very much like a sort of schematic layout. Okay, at the moment, if I were to hide the image from the background, for example, this isn't going to look like a finished screen. We'd then go on to sort of make a copy of that, remove the background, have a look, analyze it. Obviously, if we were designing this from scratch, we would then do some analysis on it before bothering to spend the time finishing it, if that's part of our job. We then have a copy that again, and we look at resizing it, making sure everything fits within a grid system and that we've got it fine-tuned, spacing things out, looking at layouts, making sure, for example, here we have a width of a screen that's 320 pixels wide, but that doesn't divide by 3. Okay, so we've got 3 tabs here, which are supposedly equal size. We've got a bit of an issue. So, these are sometimes the issues, particularly with odd numbers into screen resolutions, etc. Not that people would ever perceive 1 pixel here or there, okay? So we look at things like that. We tidy it all up, basically. Like to be very neat. If we don't solve problems now, we create problems later. Generally speaking, although I'd be making this as if it's an asset, this would all be generated by a programmer, so they want coordinates and spaces, etc. Okay, so sorry about that, just a bit of a distraction. So as I say, we're going to resize, then refine, and then the final phase will be colouring it all and finishing it off, tidying up any details, exporting, etc. Okay, so I'm going to go into my layers at the moment. Obviously, I'm currently in isolation mode from the previous tutorial, so if I just double click anywhere on the stage to exit that, go back to the default layer. What I'm going to do for now is I'm going to basically unlock the original image, which is in the background here. Let's check I've got the right thing selected. Okay, and I'm going to separate that for the moment onto a separate layer just by dragging it, creating a new layer, using a new layer page down here at the bottom of the layers palette, and then because it was selected, I can grab the little color chip and move it. That means I can lock and temporarily just hide the background here. Okay, so I'm going to move to that new layer. I'm going to add another layer on top of that. So this one's going to be my image. I'm going to lock that so I don't accidentally, again, I can't accidentally move it. If you prefer to, sometimes when you're tracing over things that are a bit dark or it's a bit hard to see with your lines, if you double click the layer, there is an option to dim the images on a given layer to whatever percentage you want. If 50 is a bit light, you could change it to 70. That just means that when I put my lines over, it'll be easier to see what the lines are I've drawn versus what the ones are that are effectively on the background image. So I'm going to go into here, and for now I'm going to hit my draw layer, create that. Okay, and I'm going to zoom in for the moment. In fact, no, let's wait a second. I'm going to use the rectangle tool to block out some of these shapes. So I know that I've got a small little square here. I'm going to click and drag with my rectangle tool, holding down the shift key. Okay, I'm just going to let go when I think it looks about right. Now, at the moment, because of whatever settings I was using last time, it's going to put a default. It's going to put the black fill, in this case a no stroke. The default is usually to fill with white and have a black stroke. I usually find it useful to have no fill and then an outline, especially for outline work like this. But it means you can see through it. Okay, and we're just doing a quick block out, so I don't really want fill. If I were to cover this page area with a color, I'm going to lose all the text, etc. Now, if for some reason black is difficult to see, just double click and dial in a garish color or something that you're going to be able to see more easily. No problem. Okay. What I'm going to do now is do the same thing for the page as a whole. Okay, I'm just going to let it's snapping automatically. I'm going to zoom in a bit. I know that I'm going to guess that these are probably the same size. It certainly should be. I'm going to want a rectangle down here later for this shape. I'm going to need 2 little rectangles for the plus symbol. Now, because it's a plus symbol, I could use a type element, but I'm going to draw it. But I'm going to use the same piece and rotate it later. So it's not quite in the center. I'm not worried about that at the moment. Again, I'm going to zoom in a little bit more. You can see the original is not high quality because it's from the internet. This could easily be a sketch I've done on paper in the background. So I'm literally just blocking out some of the core shapes. You can nudge with the arrow keys to get them right roughly into position. Now here I want round cornered rectangles on these bits for the calendar. So I'm going to change my tool, hold down on the rectangle tool and choose the rounded rectangle tool. It's a variation of it. And I'm going to click and drag. Now if your settings aren't quite right, that doesn't look bad. But you can also just click, type in your width, height or guess, and you can control your corner radius here. If you're using Creative Cloud, you can actually use the rectangle tool and then pull in the radius on the corners. But I'm fairly happy with that. And again, it's going to be a copy for that. Final thing I want to do is I just want to sort of guesstimate some rectangles here for this tick. And again, I'm going to duplicate. I'll show you that in a second. So I've worked out basic kind of blocks for the kind of core areas. I also will need a couple for the battery, a bigger one and slightly smaller one. Just nudge with the arrow key like so. So those are my basic rectangles. Now I want to deal with this shape. I'm going to be using the pen tool. A lot of people are afraid of the pen tool. It's very easy, particularly when you're doing straight lines. It's a little bit harder to get your head round initially when you're doing curves. It is probably the best tool in the whole package. It's just awesome, but it does take a certain amount of commitment and time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over to the edge. I'm going to slightly past the edge. You could start here, but I prefer to start just slightly off screen. I'm just going to guess with my eye roughly where I think that line would go to. I'm going to come up here to where I think the corner is and click. And I'm going to hold down Shift. And Shift, you can see I've got smart guides. As I move down, I get this little green line. If I hold down Shift, it means this line is going to be exactly directly below the point, the one above. The point, sorry, not the line. So the line, in other words, will be completely vertical. Click again. I'm going to keep Shift held down and do the same horizontally. So I now know that this line will be perfectly horizontal. Okay. If you don't use Shift, then what you can do is you can select with the white arrow the 2 individual points and use the Align tool to make sure that they're perfectly aligned. I can also use the white arrow, not the black arrow. It's called the Direct Selection tool. It allows me basically to select individual or multiple points, but not the whole object. The black arrow would select this entire line. White arrow allows me, for example, just to select this endpoint, and then I can move just that one. So if I didn't get the angle quite right, I can adjust it. Likewise over here, could go down, but I feel it was about right. So I'm going to put it back. Okay, so I've got that basic bit drawn. I'm going to now hold down. My favorite shortcut is to use Alt, okay, and drag a copy. You can see when I press the Alt key, my arrowhead doubles, which means it's going to make a copy. If I combine that with Shift, it constrains it to be perfectly horizontal, like so. Okay. What I'm going to do with this one though is I don't need the horizontal line, so I'm going to use the white arrow again to select this point and just hit delete on my keyboard. Okay, you'll see it overlaps a bit. It's not a problem right now. I'm going to do the same again out to the end here. Okay. Again, we could get Illustrator to align this, but for now I'm going to just rely on my eyes and I'll tweak the settings later. So bearing in mind what I just showed you with the Alt key, we can zoom in. I can hold down Alt again to drag a copy of this rectangle. I can rotate it, and rather than guessing by eye, I'm going to ask Illustrator to align these for me. So I'm going to come out, deselect, I switch back to the black arrow, drag the corner. When it goes white, it means it's going to overlap. The points have snapped together. Okay, if I'm not sure, I can select multiple. I'm just holding down Shift, selecting both. Come up to Align, and again, make sure that you have it set to selection, not to page, and I can make sure that they're perfectly aligned that way. Okay, I'm now, just for ease, going to group these. So I hold down the right mouse button and go to group. Okay, it's the same as going object and then group at the top here. Okay, Control G, Command G, depending if you're a Mac or PC user. I want to rotate this, I'm guessing 45 degrees. So I'm going to double click on my rotate tool. I have my palette docked up in the 2-column view. If yours isn't, it's this little symbol here. You can hit V on your keyboard to select it. I'm just going to type in 45 degrees and hit preview. And it happens that it's perfect in this case. If it's the wrong direction, then you hit it, put a minus in front or something like that. So I'm happy with that. I'm going to use the arrow keys, nudge it into place. What I may need to do is just come in and stretch or grow maybe the whole shape. It's a bit small maybe. Okay. In this case, I feel this one's too long. So I'm using the white arrow just to select this side of the shape. Or you could click and shift click these 2 points. So I'm only going to be moving them. I'm moving one arrow key, in this case right, and one down, which keeps it 45 degrees, and that looks better. Might do the same with this top corner. So one up, one across, and we're good. Okay, so Alt and drag, shape across. Now I'm going to guess that these are probably about the same space, so I should now be able to go to Object. What I did was basically, last thing I did was transform and move. So I can do transform again and it will copy the same thing I did last time. So it's going to make a copy of the box, same distance down. Okay. Again, using the machine to do these things, just make sure that they're properly aligned, etc. If I'm not sure, I can select them all, bring up the align dialog, align them left. I can even distribute the vertical space just to make sure that you can see nothing moved, because I did it using the machine in the first place. If you can't see that for some reason, there's usually an option for viewing more details if these aren't showing up in your align palette. Okay, and you can also bring up, in fact, it's a very good idea to bring up the align palette anyway. It comes with the Pathfinder palette we're going to be using in a minute. By default, under the Essentials view, this is not visible. So you just go to Window and Align, and it comes up. And then what I'm going to do is snap it into my dock over here so I can use it in a second. So we've got the element here. I'm just going to nudge to get it in the right position. This time I'm going to use the rotate tool. I'm going to change it to 90 degrees. And instead of hitting OK, I'm going to hit copy. Okay, that'll make a copy of it. They'll now be perfectly aligned. Okay. So we're pretty much getting there. We're getting close. Just need to make some text. Need to duplicate this one for the calendar as well. I'll come back to the diary bit later. Okay, we can duplicate this shape, but I'll leave that till later, till we've turned it to a single shape. Final thing to do is just to adjust this one. So what I'm going to do is take my white arrow, select the top corner here. And you can either do it one of two ways. You can either use your arrow key and count them out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Maybe less, 8. No, 9. We'll stick to 9. We do the same on this one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And that should be fine. Your other alternative is select both and use the scale tool. I'll use the white arrow to select both. Selecting the scale tool to bring them in and keep them perpendicular. So whichever you prefer to create that shape, but it's now a straightforward regular shape. Just need to make it a little bit thinner. All I've done there is I've just grabbed these handles on the end. I've held down Alt, which means it will come in the same distance from both sides, keeps it symmetrical. I just want to nudge it until I feel it's in the right position and let go. Okay, so we're pretty much ready. We're ready for the next phase, which is the slicing and dicing and adding some type. So I'll see you in the next section.